Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby and today I'm going to be starting on a reading vlog that I am so incredibly excited about because it's going to be reading books from Latin and Hispanic authors, which this is a video that I have just been so incredibly excited to make because if you didn't know, I'm actually partly Mexican. My dad is half Mexican and my grandma is full Mexican from Tijuana, and so it just means so much to me to finally do this video. This is a video I've actually been wanting to make for years now, and in this video I'm going to be focusing specifically on like the thriller and horror genre of books from these authors, and I'm so excited to get to it. But before we do jump into today's video, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Every Plate for sponsoring today's video. If you're looking to save some money this summer, I highly recommend checking out Every Plate. They are America's best value meal kit because with Every Plate it is 25% cheaper than grocery shopping, and you do not have to miss out on the quality because they will send you fresh ingredients delivered right to your door. You don't even have to leave the house and deal with the obnoxious lines at the grocery store. And what's nice is that these meals all come with pre-proportioned ingredients, so you're not gonna have to worry about having anything left over and having any food waste at the end of it. I love that with all of these Every Plate meals, they are very customizable so that you can swap out a protein for a different protein or a different side for a different side if there's something that you're not feeling. And they also have so much variety, so you're never gonna be stuck cooking the same things over and over again. They have 26 different weekly recipes to choose from, and not only do they have the meals, but they have 22 different sides, snacks, desserts, all kinds of things that you can add on as well. Something that I've really enjoyed about making food with Every Plate is how easy these meals are to make. You know, for someone who's not too much of a cook like myself, I like that they break it down in the most easy way. There's photos, you can really see like what you're supposed to be doing, and I feel like I learned so much about cooking every time that I make meals with Every Plate. I love too with Every Plate that almost all of these meals are ready in 30 minutes or less. Like, it is no time at all to make these. I recently just made these caramelized onion burgers with my sister, and these are one of my favorite dishes to make with Every Plate. Like, I absolutely love their burgers. The caramelized onions just add so much freaking flavor, and I'm always so impressed by the taste of these burgers, and the buns are always so freaking soft. So you can get started with Every Plate for just $1.49 per meal by going to everyplate.com and using my code gabbyreads149. Isn't that incredible? Literally $1.49 per meal when you go to everyplate.com, use my code gabbyreads149. What an incredible deal. It's up to $110 in value, so that is incredible. Please take advantage of it, and thank you so much to Every Plate for sponsoring today's video. And now, let's get on to the reading vlog. What will I be reading, you might ask? So the first thing that I'm going to be reading for this video is 19 Claws and a Blackbird, which this is one that I'm so excited to read. This one's actually an ARC copy. This one goes on sale June 20th. And this is one that I'm really looking forward to reading because out of all the books that I'm reading for this video, this is the only one that I've read a book from this author before. This is actually the author of Tender is the Flesh, which was one of my favorite horror books. I feel like that was a really unique horror book. And this one sounds really interesting because this one's actually a collection of 20 dark short stories, and this one's also pretty short, by the way. It's only like 160 pages, but I'm so excited to finally read this. I feel like I've had my hands on this one for so long. And this author is from Argentina, and it says on the back that she is a central figure in the Buenos Aires literary scene, so that's exciting. Can't wait to read this one. And then the next author that I want to read for this video is also from Buenos Aires, and that's Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez. And this is one that I've been hearing such incredible things about. There's even a blurb on this one on the front cover that says one of Latin America's most exciting authors, and it's blurbed by Silvia Morena Garcia, which I'm not reading anything by Silvia Morena Garcia for this vlog, but I have read her before. She's the author of Mexican Gothic, which is another horror book that I would highly recommend from a Latin or Hispanic author, but this one I'm so excited to read. I've been hearing great things, even though this one is super thick. It's a really long one. It's about 600 pages. But this one, the premise just says a woman's mysterious death puts her husband and her son on a collision course with her demonic family. And then I'm also going to be reading The Haunting of Alejandra by V. Castro, and this author is Mexican-American. It says she was actually born in San Antonio, Texas to Mexican-American parents. And this one is a horror novel as well that is just so exciting. I mean, look at this cover. Is this not one of the most beautiful covers you've ever seen in your life? I love the orange, and then I love all the like flowers on her. It's just so stunning. And this one just says a woman is haunted by the Mexican folk demon La Llorona in this ravishing and provocative literary horror novel about motherhood, family legacy, and self-discovery. Provocative literary horror? Sign me up. That sounds amazing. And then the last book that I'm planning to read for this video is an audiobook that I got checked out from my library, and it's the book Piñata. And Piñata is a recent horror book that just came out in March that I've been hearing good things about. It was published by Tor, and this author is also from Mexico. This one one, the main reason why I was so curious to read this one is because on Goodreads, the premise on Goodreads says A Head Full of Ghosts meets Hereditary. Like, I'm sorry, what? Like, to compare A Head Full of Ghosts and Hereditary? Like, I'm just so curious. And in this story, we follow this woman named Carmen who is back in her home country of Mexico for the first time with her daughters. They kind of get treated poorly by the locals from what I understand, and then there's some kind of accident that like forces them to leave and they go back, but they feel like they can't really escape from whatever was down there with them. I don't know, it does say it's a terrifying possession tale. So I'm very curious to check this one out. I can't wait. So yeah, these are the 4 books that I'm planning to read for this video. I'm very excited. If you are curious, I have made videos like this in the past, kind of. Like last year, I did 2 different videos where I read horror and thriller books from Korean authors, and then I did one with Japanese authors. So I'll have those videos linked down below if you enjoy this video and you're looking for something kind of similar where I explore authors from a specific country or area. And yeah, I'm so excited. Let's just jump right into it. Hello, it is so much later in the night. It's like 10:30 at night. Earlier today, I did a grocery run down to Target because there was like a couple things that I wanted to get before I left on my trip that's coming up. Like I'm leaving for California in a couple days, so I needed to get a few things. I actually wanted to get like a few new pans and just like a few things that we were desperately in need of. And then while I was driving down, you know, to Bellingham, because, you know, our closest Target is like 25 minutes away. It's a little bit of a drive. Thought while I was driving down to Target, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna start on the audiobook for Our Share of Night and like start listening to it and get a feel for it, you know, because this audiobook is 27 hours long, okay? So I just wanted to get a head start on it. And then literally tonight, you know, I came home, we made some dinner. We made this really good Mexican dinner, by the way. We made like these amazing beef quesadillas. My sister made her rice, and then we also made that like spicy corn from Costco. That's just like the best thing ever. But anyways, after dinner, I literally restarted the audiobook from the beginning and listened to the entire thing today because earlier I got like 15% of the way into the audiobook. I listened for like 3.5 hours earlier today, and then I started it from the beginning again because of how much I'm loving it and because I wanted to be able to like write in it and annotate it because this writing is incredible. I'm not gonna lie, you know, when I added this book to my TBR, I was very nervous, and in my brain I was thinking that this would be a book that I wouldn't like for some reason, because not only is it so long, and like long books just really intimidate me, you know, they just really do, but also because with the description of this book, I wasn't sure if it would be something that I would enjoy, you know, because this book talks a lot about how it's about demons, like summoning demons, and like that's the kind of horror aspect of this book that's going on. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if that's my thing, but it turns out it is my thing. It turns out that I'm absolutely obsessed with this. Like, could this be a 5-star? I don't know. I mean, at this point in time, I'm 86 pages in. I have caught up to exactly where I was at earlier when I like started the audiobook again from the beginning, so I'm still about like almost 4 hours into the audiobook at this point, and I'm just so impressed by the writing in this book. Like, oh my god, the writing is absolutely beautiful. So basically in this story, we're following this man named Juan, and then we're following his son Gaspar, and they're both on a road trip. They're dealing with the fact that his wife has recently passed away in a really tragic and like gruesome, awful way. So the thing that makes this book kind of like fantasy-ish, like horror-ish, is the fact that Juan, he is what they call a medium, and so he has the ability to like communicate with the dead. Basically, he has all kinds of different abilities. I don't even fully understand all that he's capable of doing, to be honest, but I know that he can summon demons. He can have like secret conversations where he like doesn't move his mouth, and I also think that he can like alter his appearance. Like, I don't really totally understand everything that this man can do, but honestly, reading about it has been so fascinating. Like, this is exactly the kind of like barely kind of fantasy that I can get on board with, you know, like this is really interesting. I also am just so like loving this father-son relationship that they have. Like, I just love both of these characters so much. Like, right away, just instantly like love them. I love too that this first part of the book is taking place in 1981, and it looks like, you know, something that I thought that I would also not like about this book is that it's just broken up into like 5 or 6 parts, and besides that there are no chapters, which is like crazy, right? Because this book is so long. I'm like, how is there no chapters in a book that's nearly 600 pages? Part 1 of this book literally goes all the way to page 138, and then that's just part 1, and then it starts part 2, and so I think it does span quite a bit over time, but all of this part 1 has all taken place in the year of 1981 so far. It's so crazy though to me, because I feel like with this book, the way that I would describe it and how I say it's written, you're probably like, that's a lot of things that you usually hate about books, because yeah, there's no chapters, which is something that usually bothers me to no end, and there are quite a bit of, you know, chunky paragraphs where it's just like wall to wall text with like nothing breaking it up, which is usually something I really complain about, and that does bother me. It really does, but at the same time, the writing is so beautiful that I just don't mind it as much. And then this book also does this thing that's kind of strange, where like sometimes it'll have conversations where they're in quotation marks, like the dialogue bits, and then sometimes it'll have like the entire conversation is like within a paragraph, and then the author won't use any quotation marks within the paragraph, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know if that makes sense, but like sometimes during dialogue there is no quotation marks around the dialogue, so it can be a little bit confusing if you're not paying close attention. And I think that's kind of why I wanted to start the audiobook again from the beginning, because I felt like sometimes during the day while I was just driving around, I wasn't paying attention close enough, and I like missed certain things, and then I'd have to like skip back to try to find where I like stopped paying attention. But now that I have reread this entire beginning part again, like holy shit, I'm just so obsessed with it. Like, here's just an example of the writing, just so you can see what I'm talking about with how gorgeous it is. It says, she had never seen such a man before or after him, and now, seeing him again, he seemed so extraordinarily beautiful that her eyes went hazy. The sight of him was like a surprising sunset, when nature put its danger and its beauty on vivid display. I also do think, as far as like the horror elements of this book goes, it has been a little bit creepy so far, you know, because our, you know, like I said, our protagonist, he has the ability to like summon these demons, and from what I understand, some of these demons are like able to disguise themselves as like humans, or like they wear the body of a human as a disguise or something, and they're in the nude. And what's interesting in the story, which this isn't a spoiler or anything because this is right in the beginning, but he's starting to realize that his son might be inheriting these like magical abilities that he has, you know, like he's afraid that his son's also becoming a medium. And so that's kind of like his concern throughout this book, is that he's gonna have to like teach his son how to like potentially detach himself from that world, if that makes any sense. I don't even know what I would compare this to, and I find it really hard to describe what's happening in this book because I'm not a fantasy person. But if I had to compare this book to like anything, this is gonna sound really strange, but I think I would compare this to like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Like, it's giving me similar vibes to that book, and I don't know how to explain why that is. I think it's the whole idea of like the devil and the demons and the historical feel of the writing, but the way the writing is just so freaking gorgeous, and it like makes me feel nostalgic for things that I've never experienced, you know. It gives me that same kind of feel with the writing, like, I don't know. And that's a great sign to me, you know, because The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is one of my favorite books of all time, so for me to compare it to that already is just wow, you know, it shows that I'm having a great time with this one. I also feel like some of the horror scenes in this book so far kind of remind me of It Follows, just with the way that like this demon or these creatures can like disguise themselves as like naked people, and the way he's like, only certain people can see them, and like they're the only two right now that can see those people. It's just giving It Follows vibes just a tad, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so creepy, but it's like so well written at the same time. Like, I don't know, I'm just really into this. I'm very impressed so far. I was not expecting to be as obsessed with this as I am right now. I think tomorrow I want to try to read more of this. You know, I was really planning on taking my time with this, you know, because I'm literally leaving on a trip for California in 3 days, and I told myself, oh, I'm just gonna start on it now and then finish it after I get back home from my trip. But now I'm like, oh fuck, because I'm kind of obsessed with this, and now I have a feeling that I'm gonna be like cramming this book into these next few days because I don't think I'll be able to put this down. But I think tomorrow, I originally had this idea that I wanted to go back down to this park that I really love to go to. That's kind of a drive. It's like a 35 minute drive, but it's just been a while since I've been, and you know, the weather's been kind of shitty lately, but it's supposed to be kind of like nice and sunny tomorrow and not too hot. So I think it would be a lovely day to go and like sit by the water and read this book and just have the best time. How's it going? I just spent a very lovely afternoon in the park by the water. It was a little bit windy today. It is a little bit windy, like almost a little bit too windy. I put on my, you know, my bucket hat, and I wasn't really thinking about the fact that it would be like really windy today, and there was a few times where this thing almost flew off of my head. I was like, holy shit, I had to like hold it down when I was like walking on the boardwalk because it was pretty windy up there. But it's been a really lovely afternoon. Like, oh my god, I really needed this today, you know? It's been so long since I've come down here and just like read by the water for a little while. I've still been reading Our Share of Night. At this point, I'm on part 3 of the book, and I'm about like 250 pages in or so, and I am still really enjoying it. I do think so far in the book, part 1 was definitely my favorite section of the book so far, because that's the part where we are following the protagonist Juan. And then in part 2 of the book, part 2 was pretty short. It was only like maybe like 20 or 30 pages, and we followed the perspective of a different character. I mean, it was still written in third person, but we followed a different character's perspective. And now in part 3, it's taking place a few years later in the future, and we're following kind of from the perspective of his son, from Gaspar's point of view. And again, it's not really like from his point of view, it's all written in third person, but like you can just tell that part 3 is a little bit more about like his story and what's going on with his character. And I'm still really enjoying it. I feel like with part 3 though, it is getting a little bit like it's getting a little wordy, you know, like it's feeling a little long now. I mean, I don't know, there are just some scenes that seem to drag on a little bit too long for my personal taste, but also there are some things happening now in terms of like the horror elements of this book that are just like very intense, and I'm just very into it still. I also just really love the characters in this book, you know, like the characters, especially Juan and Gaspar, like they're the reason why I am continuing to read this, because I'm just really loving their characters. And even though this isn't like something I would typically pick up, you know, because this is definitely something that feels a little bit outside of my comfort zone. Like even as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh wow, like this is so interesting. I didn't think this would be something I could become so invested in, but like here we are, you know. So I love when a book can surprise me in this way. Anyways, I think I am going to head back to the apartment now. I did end up putting some tabs in on like where the next parts are, just so I'm aware. and I think I have about like 50-ish pages until I hit part 4. So hopefully while I'm on the drive back to the apartment, hopefully I can reach part 4. Look at her hair! It's blonde. Hello, it has been about 24 hours since the last time that I updated this vlog, but I did want to give you an update because I have still been reading Our Share of Night. As of now, I'm about 450-ish pages into it. I just got to part 6, which is the last part of this book. And you know what's interesting is that parts 3 and 4 were both really, really long, and then part 5 was another short one. It was another one that was only like 20 to 30 pages or so. And it's interesting because we've been kind of jumping around time periods here. So in part 3, it took place during the years of like 1985 to 1986, but then part 4, we jumped back to 1960 to 1976, and then in part 5, we jumped forward again to 1993. So part 4 was really interesting because we did get to see a lot of, you know, flashbacks of like some of these characters that we know during earlier times, and we kind of get more like backstory on those characters. I feel like for me so far, personally, I feel like part 3 of the book was pretty slow. Like, I don't know, part 3 was starting to lose me just a tad because of the pacing. Like, I do feel like this book has really great atmosphere, really great writing, and really great characters, but sometimes I feel like the pacing can be a little bit slow for me. And I don't know if that's also because this book is a little bit out of my element of like what I usually read, you know, and some of it, I feel like some of it is going a little bit over my head with like the talk about some like fantasy aspects and the idea of this cult, like the hierarchy of this cult is like a little bit confusing to me and like how it works. But then part 4 of the book I actually really liked, even though it felt the most like historical out of all of the parts so far. Like some of the historical writing I struggled with a little bit, like, and I thought it was a little bit boring at times, but the ending of part 4 I thought was really good and like really powerful, you know? So like, I don't know, the ending of part 4 ended up being one of my favorite parts of the book so far. And then part 5 was really interesting because it was almost like told in a really unconventional way. I don't know, I feel like so far all of these parts have been really different, you know, because we do focus more on a certain character, like a different character for each part of the book. And so I'm really curious to see what this last part, part 6, is gonna be like, and like which character we're really gonna focus on in part 6. I don't really know yet. I feel like for me so far, I don't know, I'm feeling like this will probably be like a 4-star book for me. In the beginning, I was absolutely loving it and I was obsessed, and I still do really like all of the things that I said that I liked about the beginning of it, you know? Like, I do love the writing and the characters are so good, but there's something about the pacing of this book, it's bringing it down a little bit for me just because it's so long. It's nearly 600 pages, and a lot of the times I feel like with books of this length, I always feel like they never need to be this long, but at the same time, I'm still having such a good time reading this. I really thought that I would be able to finish this before I left for my trip, but you know, clearly that is not the case because I'm leaving tomorrow at 7 a.m. I'm trying to go to bed soon after I finish filming this clip. Hello, I'm finally getting the opportunity to update this vlog because I am back from my California trip, but I'm also excited to let you know that while I was on the trip, I finished Our Share of Night. I listened to most of this on audio when I was on the way down to California, and then I only had about an hour left, and I actually finished reading, I listened to the last hour of this audiobook when I was laying on the beach in Redondo Beach. It was a really lovely day. It was kind of like overcast, but it was really perfect, to be honest. Like, it was a great time. And it was really cool actually because my cousin Grant, his girlfriend Kara, she had actually just finished reading this book like a couple weeks ago. So it was really cool to like finish the book, you know, when she was right there, and we got to talk about like our thoughts about it when we think about it. And I feel like we have really similar feelings when it comes to this book. It was so good. It was so beautifully written. I feel like this is one of those books where the characters are really going to stick with me for a long time, and the characters are definitely what makes this book so good for me. I have, you know, mixed feelings about the ending, because I feel like the ending of this book, it's a little bit like haunting, it's a little bit ambiguous. I feel like it's one of those endings where you're not going to get every single answer that you're looking for, but I also do appreciate an ending like this in a lot of ways. I feel like in the moment when I read an ending like this, I'm like, oh, like I need more, like I want more answers, I need more story. Like it just kind of feels like it ends, you know, like it just ends. And I feel like with this book, what I'm going to remember the most about this book is the atmosphere and the writing and the characters. Like this book has some of the best atmosphere that I've read in a book all year long. Like it's really truly incredible. I feel like overall I'm debating between giving this book like 4 to 4.5 stars, and the only reason why I don't want to give it the full 5 stars is because of the pacing of this book. Like I do think there were some sections of the book that were like a lot slower for me and harder to get through, but I think overall I'm just so impressed by the writing and the characters. Like I know I keep saying this, but like the characters just really touched me in a way that not too many books have, especially in a horror book. Like in a book of this genre, I wasn't expecting to feel as attached to the characters as I was. And I don't know if it's just because this book is so long and it's just like after, you know, such a long time, you just start to get invested more. Like maybe that's the case, but I also just think these characters were so well written and it was such a lovely surprise. I'm also excited to let you know that I started on the next book that I was hoping to read for this vlog. On the plane ride home, I actually started on Pinata, which is another book that I am hoping to read for this vlog. I'm not the biggest fan of like possession kind of stories, so I'm even more curious to see where this is gonna go, because right now I'm only 30% of the way through this audiobook, and I've got to say it kind of sucks, but like I'm not loving this one so far. I think the thing that was really great about this book at the beginning is that it starts with this prologue, and the prologue involves like a piñata, you know, like a Mexican piñata, and it's very dark, disturbing, like very gory, graphic, violent. Like the prologue of this book, I was like, oh shit, like holy shit, like we are just jumping right in with the horror, you know? Like the prologue was fantastic, like it was so freaking good. But I feel like ever since the prologue, I don't know, the story's been kind of a slow burn for me, and I feel like I'm just like waiting for the horror elements of this book to really kick in. But every now and then when the horror elements feel like they're starting to happen, they are so much more gruesome than I was anticipating. Like this horror in this book is brutal, like disgusting. It like you can picture it in your head very easily. Like the writing is just so vivid. You know, the main premise of this story is that we're following this woman named Carmen, and she's a mother of 2 teenage daughters. They were originally living in New York, but now they're going to be going back to Mexico, which is actually her homeland, and she's going to be like overseeing the renovation of this like hotel, as far as I'm understanding is what's happening in this book. But it's weird because we also get the perspective at some parts of this book from one of the local girls that like lives there, and she keeps being like, you know, in her narration she's like, if only this family knew that they were in danger and like something's coming for them. I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the writing in this book so far. I don't know if this is this author's debut book or not, but I'm feeling like, I don't know, the writing just feels like it's written kind of like a debut. Like if I had to say anything about the writing, it would just be that it feels very like a debut and kind of like a little immature and like young. The writing just isn't my favorite. Like I'm just not really obsessed with the writing. I don't care as much about the characters as I want to. Like I feel like the mother-daughter relationships in this book, they're just written in a way that's very awkward to me. And I don't know, I feel like it's one of those stories where it's very convenient so far, like some of the things that are happening, you know, because there'll be a scene where this young girl that like lives in the town, she's like going up to the mom being like, oh, I have to tell you something, I have to warn you about something, and the mom is just like assuming that it's like a threat and that she's like trying to like take money from her or something, and she like will not give this girl the opportunity to like explain herself, and it just seems very like convenient for the plot that that's what's happening. Like I don't know how to explain it. It just feels a little bit like ridiculous at times, and I'm just not loving the characters as much as I thought that I would. But regardless, I don't know, I'm curious because I just read the full premise on Goodreads, and there's a part of the premise that I just read that hasn't even happened yet in the book. So I'm like, okay, clearly there's more to the story that's going to be happening here. So I definitely want to continue listening to it tonight and see if my feelings about it change. I feel like if I'm still really not enjoying this book by the 50% mark, then I might just call it quits and DNF. For now, I'm going to push through and see how it goes, and I will update you with thoughts when I have them. Hello, what's up? It has been a couple of days. I'm currently getting ready to go over to my parents' house because I'm going to be filming a really fun video with my dad this afternoon. That's going to be, it's going to be a Patreon exclusive video that I'm doing with my dad. It's going to be kind of like a Q&A. Like, my Patreon submitted some questions for my dad, so we're going to be answering those. And then it's also going to be like, he's going to be teaching us how to make one of his favorite Mexican dishes. And so I think it'll be really fun. I think my dad's going to make chilaquiles, which has always been a fave of ours. My dad makes them really different though than like most chilaquila recipes, so I think it'll be really fun to get to do that. But I did want to update you because I think I have decided to go ahead and DNF Pinata, because I was trying to listen to it again earlier today and I still was only able to get 41% of the way into the audiobook, and I don't know what it is about this book. I don't know if I can even explain to you why I'm not liking it. I just don't really like it that much. All the characters are just kind of driving me nuts. We do get like, it's not like the perspective of the two daughters in this book, but we just get, the audiobook kind of does the little girl's voice, for her, because one of the girls is pretty young. And I don't know, it's just so annoying. Like, I don't like the writing style. I'm not on board with the characters. And I feel like the book is just moving so slow for me. Like, at 41% of the way in, I still feel like not that much has even happened in this book. So I'm DNFing it for now. I'm so sorry. Maybe one day I'll get back to it, but honestly, I just don't know if this is the book for me. So for now, that one is a DNF. But I did want to update because I have started on The Haunting of Alejandra, which is the next book that I was wanting to read for this vlog. I actually was able to get the audiobook from my library. Like, my library, they've just been coming through lately with the audiobooks. But I was able to get 72 pages into this just this afternoon. I just started this audiobook like around an hour and a half ago. So in this story, we're following this woman named Alejandra, and she's a mother of 3 children, and she has this husband named Matthew. They've recently moved from Texas to Philadelphia because he got like a job transfer, or like he got a different job opportunity, and he's like their primary source of income. She's, for the most part, from what I understand, she's like a stay-at-home mom. She's raising the kids, but it's making her, severely unhappy. Like, she's starting to really regret some of her life decisions, and she's honestly been feeling pretty like suicidal and just like wanting to take her own life, which is pretty tough to read, to be honest. Like, I think if you have any trigger warnings for like, self-harm or like suicidal thoughts, this one is a little bit tough. At least for me in the beginning, I was like, wow, like that is some really heavy shit. And so just know that, I guess, going into this book, that it is pretty depressing. She just talks about how she's finding it so overwhelming. Like, she didn't even really know if she wanted to be a mother, or at least like she always wanted 2 kids, but he wanted 3 kids, and now she's feeling like completely overwhelmed and just chaos all the time. And her husband Matthew is kind of the worst. He's one of those guys who's like a total man-child. Like, he cannot take care of himself, and he can't even like handle the kids. Like, he's one of those guys who just expects her to like cook and clean every night because he's the one making the money, and like he'll just be like laying there in bed and expect her to go and like wake up the kids and take care of them, and just like ick. He's just one of those guys that's like so annoying. Like, he wants it all, but he's not willing to put in any of the effort, and so it really just all falls on her. And he's also, really gross because she'll like explain to him that she's like feeling this way, like she's feeling suicidal, she's feeling very depressed, and he'll just kind of like brush it off and just be like, I don't understand why you're feeling this way, like you just get to stay at home and like your life is so great. And like he just keeps silencing her in a way that's like really obnoxious. The creepy like horror element of this book so far is that she keeps seeing this woman in a white like ragged gown, like a dress. She keeps seeing this woman and she doesn't know if it's like a ghost or if it's like her imagination, but she's seeing this woman. And it's really interesting because in this story, there's a Mexican folk demon named La Lorena. I hope I'm saying that right. I think that's how you say it, but there's like a local legend about this Mexican folk demon, and so she thinks that might be what she's seeing, but it's this like really creepy like legend about this woman who like drowned her own children in a lake and then she killed herself afterwards from the guilt. And so people say she like still haunts the area, or she still haunts the lake, or like I don't know. So she thinks that she might be seeing this like Mexican folk demon, right? Like it's super creepy. I don't know, I'm loving it so far because I'm loving like there's already so much talk about like Mexican culture and like history in this book that I'm really enjoying. I'm liking learning about this like creepy Mexican folk demon and how she might be seeing her and like why she might be seeing her, because I have a feeling that their stories are going to end up being pretty similar as far as like the depression and like suicidal tendencies and thoughts go. But I don't know, I'm finding this protagonist to be very relatable in a lot of ways with her talk about depression, and also the way that she talks about like her love of music and how music just really helps her express her feelings. Like I definitely feel connected to her for those reasons, and also her, you know, her talk about motherhood and how she doesn't feel like she's cut out for motherhood, or she's not feeling like she's good enough, or like she doesn't even know if she would have really wanted children if it was up to her and like her choice. And I just really connect with a lot of those thoughts that she has. I mean, I'm obviously not a mother, but if I ever were to be, I feel like I would really relate to that. I also like too because in the second chapter of the book, we do change perspectives and we get the perspective of another woman named Otzi, and that one takes place in Mexico in 1522. So we do get a chapter that's kind of more like historical, like it's way back in the day, but it was interesting because I feel like it's just the point of view of another woman who's going through something that's kind of similar, and like I just feel like they're all going to be connected in some way. I was like flipping through this book and I noticed that it seems like in between the chapters of Alejandra, we get chapters from like seemingly random women's point of views and like their stories. So I have a feeling it's all going to be connected and they're all going to be going through similar things. And I think that this book is going to try to show us that, you know, even through time and through generations, all women have experienced such similar traumas. And I don't know, it's going to be beautiful. I just know it's going to be beautiful. It's already really beautiful. It's so well written. I'm really enjoying myself with this one, so I'm so glad that this one has been going very great so far. But anyways, I just changed because it's still, you know, pretty hot outside. It's been really hot out in Washington lately, and today it's about like 82 degrees, which I know doesn't sound that hot. It's really not that hot, I mean, compared to the last few days. But it was hot, like I just wanted to change my shirt because I was like sweaty. And now I'm gonna go over to my parents' house, and then later tonight, I might try to read a little bit more later tonight, but if not tonight, I have a lot of editing to do tonight when I get home. So if anything, I might jump back into this tomorrow and try to finish it tomorrow because it is pretty short. It's only about like 260-ish pages, so I should be able to get through this very quickly. Like,
I'm dead.
Mommy. Oh. Okay. Okay, my girl. Oh. I was always like saying my dad's a big Seinfeld person. How did you first meet Mom? Story time. Who are some of your favorite bands or artists? Which I know this is another one. We could be here all day.
Well, my favorite band was the Beatles.
Yes.
You know, and then I liked Led Zeppelin.
I had a really lovely time hanging out with my parents yesterday. You know, me and my dad recorded that video for Patreon yesterday, which was super fun. And then it was a pretty chill night where I was just editing my life away. Oh my gosh, I just had to edit 2 videos last night and it took me such a long time. But this morning, curled my hair. I went to one of my favorite local coffee spots called Loca Mocha. And you know, the cool thing about me going there was that I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, Loca Mocha kind of sounds like maybe it's Mexican. And I looked up the you know, owner's like the website, and it says that the owner is actually Mexican and they're from Los Angeles, and I was like, oh my gosh, how cool. So like you learn something new every day. I didn't know that, but now I do, so like that's even more cool. And I did want to let you know that I have finished The Haunting of Alejandra. I actually was listening to this, you know, this morning while I was eating breakfast, and then I was listening to it as I curled my hair and just throughout the day, and I was able to finish this because it is very short. It is a very quick read, and I feel so impressed by the writing in this book, and I also feel very sad. I feel like this is one of those horror books that really feels like literary fiction, you know, like it's definitely more on the literary horror side of things, and the horror elements of this book don't really kick in until the end, and even still the horror elements might not be as present, I guess, as you might think that they would be from reading the description, because I feel like this story is a lot more about, you know, depression and like suicidal thoughts, and how it's about this woman who's overcoming these things that have been a burden on her for her whole life. And I think, you know, it kind of reminds me of that movie The Babadook, which is like one of my favorite horror movies, where like the biggest horror of everything is the depression that you feel, and like it just really goes to show how scary mental illness can be. I feel like that's what this book really reminded me of. It also kind of reminded me of Our Wives Under the Sea. It just had that kind of feel to it, where the horror in the book is very subtle. The biggest scary thing of all is the real life scary things, like the mental illness or the trauma that you can go through as a person. And I just really, I don't know, I really connected to this main character at times, and I appreciated the way that she would talk about her trauma and her depression. It just felt very real, but it also, like, it did make this book very hard to read at times because it was sad. Like, it's very, like, I don't know, if you have any trigger warnings for reading about like depression or suicidal thoughts, I think you might want to steer clear of this one because it is very intense to read about sometimes. I appreciate though how vulnerable she is when she's like talking about her kids, and how like one of her biggest fears is like not being a good enough parent for them. And she says, there are times I would rather die than continue on with motherhood. I would rather be dead than have to carry the weight of it, the fear for their future, the fear that I'm not good enough. I would rather be dead than fail them. Like, it was just very stunning, very powerful, like, very intense stuff here. I was like, oh my gosh. I also did really appreciate how we not only, you know, get the story of Alejandra, but we also do, like, in between her chapters, we get the perspectives of all of these different women through different generations who are all experiencing similar things, whether it's revolving around, like, motherhood or, like, expectations that are put on them by society that they don't feel like they can live up to. I feel like there was so much connecting their different stories, and so I just thought it was really beautiful to see how it doesn't matter which generation that you're living in, women have always experienced this ridiculous kind of expectation put on them, and women have always dealt with trauma in their own private ways. And it's just really sad, but also really beautiful. Like, I don't know, I thought it was so well written. I also thought the horror elements towards the end were really intense. Like, the horror scenes were written in a way that was really graphic and disturbing. But I also think, I don't know, there was something about the second half of this book for me that just felt a little bit slow, like as far as like the pacing goes. And even though this book is only about like 260 pages, I found the second half of this book to be a lot slower in pacing, at least for me, than the first half was. Or maybe it was just like I was starting to lose interest in what was happening and I wanted the horror elements to pick up a little bit more. But I think overall this is still gonna be either like a 4 or 4.5 stars for me. Like, I don't know, I just finished reading it like 20 minutes ago, so like I still do want to take the time to process and really think about it. But I do think this is one of those really like strong, powerful literary kind of horror books that's really going to be something that sticks with you for a long time. I would definitely love to read more from this author in the future because this writing was gorgeous. It was really beautiful. Oh my gosh, the only book I have left to read this video is probably like my most anticipated read of this whole video, because this is the only book from an author that I have previously read before, and I loved Tender as the Flesh, so I'm very excited to check out this short story collection. Let's do it! Good morning, what's going on? Today is Saturday and I wanted to update because yesterday while I was eating breakfast, I started reading 19 Claws and a Blackbird, but I was only able to read the first short story while I was eating breakfast because, you know, this is a horror book that is pretty descriptive, and so I didn't really want to read too much while I was eating. And then yesterday just ended up being such a busy day that I wasn't able to read anything else, but now I'm back in bed. I just read the first 3 short stories now, and this has been very interesting so far, especially that second short story. I was like, what the fuck am I reading right now? Like, this was not what I thought that I was signing up for. The second short story was basically about this young girl who claims that she has a bunny in between her legs, and then it was about how her teacher is like being all types of creepy and like wanting to see the bunny between her legs. It was just very disturbing and unsettling. And then I just finished the third short story in this one, and so far I think the third one has been my least favorite, or like the least memorable, I guess, out of the 3, but this has been interesting so far and I'm hoping to read a little bit more of this today. I kind of have a busy day today though. Like, I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to read because pretty soon, in about 20 minutes, I'm gonna be leaving to go and meet an online friend, Justin, which I'm so excited to meet Justin. I feel like Justin and I have been online friends for a while now, like I want to say at least a couple of years, and he was on a business trip in Seattle recently and he was like, would you want to grab coffee when I'm on the way back? So he's gonna be in the area. We're gonna go meet for coffee and hang out and maybe do a little bit of book shopping as well, so I'm super excited for that. And then later tonight I have my Patreon movie night for American Psycho, which I'm so excited about because American Psycho is like one of my favorite movies, so I'm so excited to watch it again. So I don't know when I'm gonna get the chance to jump back into this, but so far, I don't know, so far it's been really enjoyable and I really like the writing. I feel like this author just writes horror so well. Like, she's really good at writing stuff that's just so visual and like easy to picture and very disturbing. Also, random side note, but yesterday was New Music Friday, you know, on Spotify. I love New Music Friday. Like, every single Friday I get so excited to hear all the latest music, and recently Post Malone dropped another new song called Morning, and this is another one that I really like. All of those singles that Post Malone has been coming out with lately, like Chemical and now this one, Morning, I've been really obsessed with. Also, Bad Bunny just dropped a new song called Where She Goes. I actually really like Bad Bunny. Like, I know there's like some people that really seem to either like love him or really not like him, but I actually really like Bad Bunny. Like, I don't know, most of his music I really enjoy. I also recently just discovered this artist. Like, I don't know how I'm so late to the game, but there's this woman named Kali Uchis. Her most recent album is called Red Moon in Venus, and I have just been absolutely obsessed with this album lately. I actually sent this album to my mom because I was like, I think this might be something that you would like. She kind of sounds like Doja Cat, but I don't know, I've just been really into this artist lately, and this album, this Red Moon in Venus, oh my gosh, I am obsessed with I Wish You Roses, All Mine, Fantasy, Hasta Cuando, Endlessly, Deserve Me, Moonlight, and Happy Now. Like, I've saved so many songs on this album, and this album actually came out in March this year, but oh my god, it's so freaking good. Highly recommend checking her out. It's pretty cool as well because she is a Colombian American singer and some of her lyrics are in Spanish. I believe it's Spanish. I think Bad Bunny, some of his music is in Spanish as well, but I think he's Puerto Rican. So anyways, that's the music update. Music has been fantastic lately. I've just been getting so back into music lately and it feels so good. Like, I love discovering new music. It is such a hobby of mine. Baby. Sweet boy. Okay, I'm here at the coffee shop. Look what it is. It's so crazy. How was the lavender latte?
It was really good.
It was good?
Yeah.
I was basic and I went for a caramel macchiato, of course. But yeah, we're just hanging out here. We're gonna go book shopping. Oh, how exciting.
Yo aguanto por tu cuerpo, otra señal en mi pecho, una rumba más mi cama. Yeah. Me matas sin pensar, me montas sin parar. Quiero morir en tus labios. Vale la pena, tú eres el tema, tan sexy, baby tú la quemas. Ey, síguela, síguela. Vale la pena, tú eres el tema, un party, baby tú la quemas. Síguela, síguela, síguela. Ey, vale la pena.
Hello, I am back. It's actually the next day. Yesterday, I was able to go out and hang out with Justin, which was so cool. It was really nice to meet him. And he was so freaking sweet because he brought me a few snacks from Canada, you know, because I've never been to Canada and he's currently living in Canada. So he brought me a few things, and these coffee crisp like bars, these are like chocolatey kind of bars. I don't know. These are the best thing ever. I'm kind of obsessed with them. Like, I kind of want to go to Canada now just to get these. It kind of tastes like, I don't know, they have like a wafer in the middle, but they're crunchy, but they're big. Like, look at the size of this thing. It's huge, you know? This kind of tastes like a Kit Kat a little bit, but it has like a coffee kind of flavor to it that is just so good. Like, I was so impressed by how good these are. Yesterday, after I got home, I had my American Psycho movie night with my Patreons, which was super fun to watch that movie again. Like, that movie is so disturbing, but it's such a thought-provoking, interesting movie. Like, we had a really great discussion at the end of the movie, you know, just talking about like, what is this movie trying to say? But oh my gosh, after last night, like after that movie night and after getting home, I was feeling so crampy and like so nauseous, so I didn't get the chance to read anymore last night. But this whole morning, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon already, I've been laying in bed pretty much all morning finishing up 19 Claws and a Blackbird, and it honestly kills me to say this. Like, I'm so upset right now to say this, but I really was not a big fan of this one, which is just shocking because this is actually the one that I was the most excited to read out of everything that I was reading for this vlog. And you know, this is the one that's a collection of 20 short stories, and it makes me so upset because there are very few short stories in this whole collection that I gave two shits about. I feel like most of these were just so forgettable, and like every time I got to the end of the story, I was like, okay, like I guess that was interesting, but not really. And a lot of these like felt kind of like not even that horror, or like it never really felt like that intense to me. Like, there was some like descriptive gore, like descriptive writing, but like I never really felt the like horror elements of some of these. There was also some of these stories that felt very similar, or like the themes and like the plots were very similar, that I was like, didn't I just read this? Like, I was kind of confused. But I think my favorite in this whole collection was probably either that first or the second are the ones that have really like stuck with me the most. But I also really did like this one that was called The Dead. That was probably my favorite in this collection. We just followed from the point of view of this young kid, and his mom had recently died, and he was trying to like understand death and like ashes and like how that works. And he has this idea that like people go to the moon when they die, and I don't know, that one was definitely the most interesting short story out of all of these to me. Unfortunately, for the most part, I thought a lot of these were just really like forgettable, and like I was kind of like, what was the point, is how I felt about so many of these. There were some too that I thought had a lot of potential, like the short story that's called Hell, and then the one that's called The Slowness of Pleasure, and then the last one called The Solitary Ones. I feel like those were the ones that had the most potential to be interesting, but even those ones, they kind of felt like they were just missing something, or just kind of felt like it was like an uninspired half-finished idea that like never really got thought all the way through. Like, I don't know, it's crazy too because this book is only like 150 pages or so, and it took me so long to read this. I kept getting so distracted. Like, every time I would finish a short story, I would like pick up my phone or like, you know, want to do something else. Like, it was so hard for me to focus on this, and I feel like that's a big sign to me that this was just not that great, and it sucks. So I think I'm probably gonna give this whole collection 2 stars. Like, honestly, I probably could give it 1 star if I was feeling very like upset, but like because there were a few stories that I did enjoy, I think I want to give this whole collection 2 stars. But like, how freaking sad, because this is the one that I was the most excited to read for this whole video. I feel like this always happens to me, where like the books that I'm anticipating the most end up being my least favorite thing that I read in the video. I mean, I know I technically read this and then I had a DNF for this video, so this video went kind of well, but also kind of not well. I mean, I really enjoyed both of these though, The Haunting of Alejandra and then Our Share of Night. Oh my gosh, I've been thinking about Our Share of Night because at this point, it's been about a week or almost 2 weeks since I've read this one. I've been thinking about this book nonstop, like to the point where I'm almost considering raising my rating of this book to a 5-star, because I feel like this is one of those books that's hard to rate, you know, because if we're just talking like the general storyline, plot, the uniqueness, and the characters, this is definitely 5 stars, you know, and it's really like stayed on my mind mind as something that's like really memorable. It's a book that I'm still thinking about. Like there's certain moments in this book that are still like haunting my brain. And I don't know, it's one of those books that has really lingered on my mind. And I feel like that's a really big sign to me that it should be a 5-star book, right? Like even though it does have some of its flaws, like there are sections that I just think are way too long. And like, yeah, this book could probably be cut down by like 100 pages or so. But like, is that really a reason to not give it 5 stars? I don't know. I've just been thinking a lot about this book ever since I finished it. And I guess that's my point, is that I've just been debating raising my rating even higher because of how much I loved it and because of how much these characters have really like stuck with me. And so overall, I am pretty happy with how this vlog turned out. I had some wins and some, you know, misses, but I'm so happy that I got to explore more books from Hispanic and Latin authors. That has been so much fun to do. And I would love to do more videos like this in the future, you know, exploring authors from all kinds of different countries over the world. I think this is like a really fun way for me to get to do this kind of stuff. I definitely want to do a second round of reading books from Japanese authors. I think I want to do that a little bit later in the year, maybe like closer to when I'm actually going to be going to Japan, just because I think that would be a really fun thing to do again. And of course, if there is a specific country that you would like to see me, you know, read from or do a video kind of like this for later this year, then of course let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching as always. If you've read any of these books, I would love to know your thoughts on them. And I would also love to know if you had any other book recommendations from Latin or Hispanic authors that you would highly recommend to me that you think I would like based off of what I liked in this video. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye!